everybody. We're proud and happy to announce that the submission on your behalf of the schematic design package was sent to the MSBA on time, and they have acknowledged receipt and in fact have inquired on a few updates and needing a few questions, had a few questions that they needed answers to, which Tape, Charlie, and were very quick to respond and provide the information that is needed. It will continue to be an ongoing communication between ourselves and the MSBA as they review the submittal package and come across any other questions that they might have. And we will do our very best to answer in a timely manner and provide them the information that they are seeking. At the moment, we don't have any questions that we would need to bring back to the EFPBC on your behalf. So that's it. We've submitted. Now let the fun begin. Mr. Gibson, you have a question?
Yeah, so the one item, I know we briefly mentioned this at the last meeting, is the reimbursement rate from the MSBA, of course, is something we're really interested in. And I think, you've clearly indicated we're able to, our reimbursement rate is going to be higher than what they offered at eligibility. I think that was 32.47. Of course, that's only based on eligible expenses. So going into this, we've done some calculation, or you have, on our behalf about what that rate might be, but that's kind of subject to confirmation. Do you have a sense, Vivian, about kind of the timing of that? I mean, I know that we'll know by the time they vote on October 26th, but when do you feel like you might have a really solid indication from senior staff that what we've calculated for the package is going to be correct?
Usually on the October 26th date, which is the formal board meeting and approval by the MSBA, that becomes more of a formality. And all the due diligence work and meetings leading up to that date will already transpire, so that we should have a understanding of what not only is considered to be part of the eligible portion of the project, as well as the reimbursement rate on the eligible items. I'm hoping by typical standards that we should have a good sense by the end of September as where we stand. Now, please don't quote me on that. It might be the end of September, the very beginning of October, but that typically is a good rule of thumb that we should have information by then.
Okay, so then for our project website updates, I'm just going to keep that like a range right now, but certainly impress upon them. We're eager to know if they agree with our number. It'd be great if it's even higher. All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
You could conceivably hear something from them on the 20th, I suppose. That's that kind of phone conversation. I don't know.
Yeah, usually on the 20th, they'll definitely do a review of the total project budget. And as I said, it's a budget where they'll kind of go through all the line items, and they did have a few follow-up questions relating to the project budget and what the line items and the dollar values we allocated for them as a budgetary might include. So in hopes that by the end of this month, it would be realistic to expect a better understanding of what that reimbursement rate is and what is considered eligible.
Great, thank you.
Geeta, you had a question? You're on mute.
I just have a quick question, since Chris mentioned about the reimbursement rate. I suppose we did not, I guess the town decided that didn't want to take the green school being as registered as a green school with the MSBA. Having said that, I guess in the last meeting, Vivian, you mentioned the reimbursement rate that you were assuming that it would be a green school project. Is there any concern, or has it happened before, even though we are not registered as a green school or green school program, that we can still aim for would they agree to that?
Yeah, based on where we are landing with our lead points, and Charlie, please feel free to jump in, but where we are landing as far as EUIs as well as, lead points, it would be considered a
right. Let me articulate the
energy efficient school.
Yeah, that's not a question. I guess, I suppose in order to aim the higher reimbursement rate, my assumption was, or thinking, that MSBA also require us to be registered as a green school because they have a reason for it, or different paperwork to go through and whatnot. You don't think so?
Not necessarily have to be registered.
I mean, when I
You just
say
have
it's
to-
a program,
Yeah,
yeah.
you have to be making sure that your design is leading towards it. That you are
Okay.
going to meet those criteria, as well as there's, it's not just based off of the green scoring.
Okay,
Your baseline reimbursement rate, there will be added to it 2 points if we fully qualify for the 2 points for it being a efficient school,
Mhm.
as well as additional points for maintenance. That one, I don't want to speculate on what that will be, but the range is from 0 to 2, and we're hoping somewhere in the middle, like a 1.5 or a 1.4. But that one is definitely subject to MSBA's review.
okay, all right,
But-
thank you.
I'm so sorry, I just want to answer one question, I think, which might relate to this. So we are going to register with USGBC, the
Mhm.
project, and will go through certification. So, and we've mandated gold. So the project, and I understanding that's one of the various moving parts with the reimbursement and that, but we are going to get certification. So it's not designing to certifiable or anything like that. So I think that's the only, it's either CHIPS or LEED.
Yes,
The verification in the state for green buildings. So we will definitely be a green building, a certified green building, hopefully gold.
Any
Anything else
other-
on?
questions?
Okay, moving on to Charlie. Project design update.
Oh, yeah, so I'm going to do the usual thing. Where I have to come back here and find the share screen. Now let me go to screen 2, share. Okay, so everybody see that?
Yes,
Yes, no, maybe?
yes.
Okay, awesome. It's nice to know. So I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to do a quickie update on graphics because we have been working on the graphics, and this is, you've generally seen versions of these, but given that the project is now rolling from sort of production and detail into selling mode, because I mean, they're really at this point, what is mission critical is now getting the word out about the project, educating the public, getting people to vote. We are working on updating project graphics, and we're not done, but we have made progress, and I just thought I'd show everybody where we were. Nothing is dramatically changing at this point. The design is essentially the design. If it passes town meeting and the override vote, then the design can obviously evolve as the project moves forward. But for now, it's kind of where it is. But this is a more updated exterior, and the difference isn't really with the building, it's with the site. I don't know if you remember, but our exterior renderings before sort of looked like a building sitting in the Mojave Desert because it was mostly just sort of looked like it was sitting on a sand dune. So now at least we have trees and grass and contours and context a little bit more thoroughly. This is the front of the building. This is more of a ground view of the front, and we'll continue to work on these, but at least now we're getting some entourage and starting to make a little bit of progress around the exterior. This is the rear, which we didn't really have a good view of before. This sort of shows the soccer field, and this kind of shows the hill rising up a little bit to the back of the building. So the exteriors we're working on. And then on the interiors, you've seen these images, but we wanted to just show updates. This is the lower lobby with the gym on the left. There's a discussion about a green wall and bringing in some biophilia and having some green stuff. So we do have greenery, which we had before in the planter, if the school wants to do that and wants to take care of that. But we could do a green wall. We're doing one right now. And you can get one, if you do a moss one, it can last for quite a while without a lot of maintenance, which is great. Another thing we did is there didn't seem to be a whole lot of comfort level with the idea of the Lynch brothers image because there was concern about finding any information in the archives about the lynches. So we took the wonderful mural that's on the outside of the current lynch and put it on the inside. And this we could do if everybody wanted to as part of the project. And it's a good placeholder for now. I think it's a great graphic.
Great idea.
And we do have that opportunity if we want, and we can kind of build the graphic into the green wall if we wanted to, which could also be kind of fun. But again, these are ideas, they're placeholders, they give a bit of a flavor. They're used to kind of communicate out to the community, and so they may not be the final solution, but they're ideas. And then these are just really updates reflecting those changes. These are views you've seen. This is the upper lobby with a little bit more, bringing in some more graphics, some media center graphic, a kind of identity around each floor, a little bit more focus on materials. You've seen the cafeteria. You've seen the early learning center corridor, but what we've begun to do is talk about maybe, I think Colleen mentioned some themes around different areas. So for now, we have kind of animals as themes. That doesn't have to be the final outcome, but there's a nice red fox. I love foxes, they're awesome. And, we kind of have an orange sort of theme on the first floor, and then green on the second and blue on the third, and going sort of from earth to vegetation to sky. It doesn't have to be that. These again are just thoughts, but at least we have something to show, getting a little more detail around lighting and materials and the flooring. We need to keep adding kiddos and all, but these are a start. They show you the cubbies and how these floors might sort of shake out. Here's a second floor that is empty, but with a bear. And but again, it's sort of showing a different theme. Is showing you those sort of cubby spaces as low walls, dividing out a breakout space where students could gather and whiteboard and the like. Here's the third floor, and here you can see on the left that outdoor deck area. So that sort of window wall, and then on the right, again, a kind of breakout space for teaching and learning near the classrooms. And then there it is again, showing you those cubbies adjacent to that. But there's some nice opportunities here to create that kind of breakout space within that wide corridor, I think. And then there's a typical classroom, which is not unlike the image we showed previously. So there's some more images we're working on. We're working on the media center. We're still working on the cafeteria. We're working on Entourage, but that's sort of a snapshot of where we were as of today. So I sort of got them and put them in the PowerPoint. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Charlie, it's great progress. One clarification I want to make for the committee, and then I had a really kind of weedy question for you. So with respect to the Lynch brothers, these guys served their country. They lost their lives in the war. They were not internationally recognized like the Vincent Owen family was with all their figure skating. So the challenge we have, we know a lot about them, but images of them, and more, just as importantly, quality images of them have been very hard to come by. So that was sort of part of Charlie's pivot, but I know the Lynch community in particular had actually reached out to me recently asking and hoping that the mural can be saved, knowing that the building's going to come down. So some way, either whether it's physically removing it or sort of digitally recreating it, I think will be really well received. So I appreciate that. So I just had a question, Charlie, if you can go back to a couple of those corridor images that look towards the classroom doors. That's a perfectly fine one. So I know, you have met with, or if you go back to one of the others that shows the door and the side light, you've had some meetings with, Frank and Andrew around security. There's different ways to, we can fully glaze a hollow metal frame with a side light. We can do a small glass panel, a big one. And as I understand it, Frank, when we go into lockdown, blinds are closed and so forth. So, that will evolve at some point. I just want to be sure that because these are really going to be digested by the public, can we just be sure we're having some conversation with Andrew and Frank about what the expectations are with respect to glazing, so that we're showing that reasonably right in terms of the district expectations? And you may tell me this is correct and you've already reviewed this with them, But before, like, for instance, I put it up on the website, I just want to know if we're doing, you know, full glazing on the top of the door, small panels and so forth.
Should I let Frank, do you want to answer that question?
No.
Okay, I will answer it then.
I don't remember.
So- We did have a specific security meeting. The security memo was produced, but it is not actually within the MSBA submission because the security consultant considers it to be confidential and doesn't think it ought to be a public document.
I agree.
Interestingly, and we did talk about glazing, we did talk about lockdown scenarios, and the district indicated that they had a desire for transparency within the building. And the attitude, the kind of strategy around classrooms is that you need a place in a classroom to shelter that you're out of view.
Yeah.
But as long as you can do that, it's good to be seen and be seen. It's good to have transparency at the classroom doors. We also have some kind of breakout spaces that have some glazing that aren't showing up in these images yet. They will. So I think the intention is to have transparency. Interestingly, this is something the MSBA actually asks about in the guidance for the schematic submission. They say, please tell us what the district's position is on this, because they precisely don't want the architect to do something that the district doesn't support. So we did have a specific conversation about this. And I think, Frank, unless I've dramatically misrepresented your position and the district's position, I think that's where we landed.
No, you're right. The reason why I didn't want to answer that is this consultant kind of pushing toward a different approach, but we do feel that transparency is important within the building for the 99.999% of the time that you have a school, and just the odds around that kind of event. I mean, I think it's a big trade-off from our perspective, and not necessarily sure the benefit of it. That it being the not having.
I know Mark has a question behind me. So I was only raising it to be sure that, we're being intentional in these interior renderings, and as opposed to, this was the door type that came up in Revit, when you were building the model, that's all. So so long as you're sort of comfortable, you're representing, the direction in terms of security, visibility, that's great. That's all I just want to be. We want to ensure we're sort of coordinated.
We've actually specifically in writing told the MSBA that there would be glazing in classroom doors and sidelights.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, just one quick question and then one comment. So the quick question is, it looks like on the left side of this image and maybe just adjacent to the door, there's a suggestion that there's some kind of durable wall facing material at the areas of gypsum wallboard that are exposed. Is that
right
what
there
that's
on the
representing?
left?
Yeah.
We're thinking of tile.
Okay. Okay, great. And the second thing is, I love all the beautiful graphics and the changes in color and the floor patterns and the cubbies and things. Something that always comes up in educational facilities is where the staff and students pin all their wonderful works and notices and things in the corridors. And it would be great to understand, as you guys advance the design and dress up these images, how you're sort of managing that with specific areas for pinup to help guide the students and staff to put things in a place rather than just covering up your beautiful bird art with a bunch of cat posters.
Yeah, so typically the fire department tends to frown upon paper in corridors.
Yeah, very limited.
So
Yeah.
there's not a lot of enthusiasm with most fire departments for that. So we tend to put a fair amount of tack board into the classrooms, but we don't tend to put a lot of tack board into corridors. And one of the things we can do is we can do a lot of glass covered display cases if that is requested. It's something that has to be curated, because otherwise I sit there empty. If there's dedicated staff we even showed it, I think. We even showed outside of, unless I'm out of my mind, outside of art, we showed display cases, because we figured you can have I mean, the art teacher would probably be delighted to keep showing student work. And we certainly can talk about kids stuff as well. Is a general, our general kind of default on that is mostly tack boards in the classrooms proper, as opposed to out in the hallways, but we're happy to talk about it.
Got it. Yeah, it just might be, I understand the expectations of the fire department. Sometimes those are different from the reality of the use of the school, and it might be worth just a zip around Ambrose or VO to see, how the faculty, or even Lynch now, like how the faculty and staff are using those areas now, and if we do need to accommodate it because people are going to do it.
You mean you might as well plan for what they're going to do?
Yes.
Okay. Frank?
Mark, thank you for bringing that up. I just want to make a general statement that, staff has obviously been back only a couple of weeks, not even full weeks yet. So all of this work took place in the time frame when they weren't around. So I think a lot of what you're talking about, Mark, and other questions just in terms of teacher input to this really has to happen within the next few weeks or so. So that's the kind of stuff that I really would love to have hear from them as to how they currently use the space. We can see it, but if they could have other things around that, what would it be? And I think it's a good balance. Charlie, both you and Charlie, it's gonna happen one way or the other. But in some instances too, these tack boards are put in places that just never get anything on them, which is also not a good look. So, but they're, staff input can be important on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the project passes, we will most certainly have multiple more rounds of kind of comprehensive meetings with staff, with teachers, faculty, staff, and the plans do in fact reflect 2.5 days or whatever it was of programming meetings with them, but we would do that again, and sort of you do end up drilling down a lot more the longer you go in terms of detail, and I'm sure that would come up
when the project passes.
when the project passes.
And also broader input, right? So, I mean, we had some key people, but just trying to get broader input is good. Those are good conversations to have with a larger audience.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, so not to beat the dead horse, but I know in some of our schools, we do have, it looks like Homosote board up on the walls, and it really is covered with student work. And I realize in some of those instances, these are buildings that were built, before codes changed, but my understanding is Homosote does offer some, fire resistant material today. So something like that.
I don't know that. I think the fire department's more worried about the paper that's pinned to the
paper itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we can talk. We will
percentage
ultimately be reviewing all this with the authorities having jurisdiction, right? We can ask them, and they may say no worries. So I have no objection to doing that. I mean, we'll absolutely keep it on the front burner.
And then the other question
is a percentage of coverage of the wall. Isn't there? Isn't there, Charlie? Doesn't fire department, isn't like a 10%? You can't be any more than 10% of something like that. I think there is a standard.
Yes.
And then the other question I just want to ask, since you had landed on this image, Charlie, the railing you're showing there, is that sort of a placeholder, or is that from a design point of view, what you're thinking that's probably like painted steel? I mean, obviously it needs supports vertically every so many feet. So that's not really literal. Might that be glass? Might that be sort of opaque at the bottom and then it transitions to something transparent? Or is this, it looks like just painted steel.
It is a
piping.
placeholder.
It's a placeholder. Okay.
Yeah. I'd be delightful if it was glass. I mean, if we can do that, we will.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
If we can't, we won't.
Yeah. Design contingency.
There you go.
10% design contingency.
Just have to decide where to put it.
Yeah.
Great, we're spending it already.
Okay, so that's those images. So that's fun. And then the other thing we were going to talk about briefly was swing space and modulars. And where basically just report out on where we are relative to what got put into the overall project budget as a placeholder. So as a reminder, here were the two schemes that went to Springtown meeting, an 8 modular scheme and a 16 modular scheme. What Frank and the district are now talking about potentially, although I don't think it's written in stone, is a 12 classroom modular solution. So this reflects that. And I don't know that that's 100% certain, but that seems to be where we are. And this shows generally the 12 classrooms. This is what the estimators looked at for pricing to put into the overall project budget. Of course, it did not go into the Lynch estimate. They are in the swing space estimate, so that's different. But that's where we are in terms of scope, and that's what we costed out. The cost, do we want to stop and talk about this?
Yeah. John Miller, do you want to talk about this now or wait from the finish?
I just have a question. So that's 12 classrooms in addition to the classrooms at Parkhurst. And this assumes central office is not there.
I think, Frank, do you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah. No, sure. I wasn't sure. Yes, it assumes central office is not there. And right now, it also assumes that our preschool program is not there. But that's really that's the most difficult part of this right now is trying to plan that out.
Okay.
But we're not anticipating more than 12. In fact, I think we have to find a different solution if we get to be more than 12 because the site. I just don't think the site can handle it.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm not contesting anything. Okay, Frank. I'm just trying.
I know, John. No, John, I go into everything with you, assuming that you're not contesting.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Mark?
Mark?
no, Charlie, go ahead. And then when you're done, I will ask.
Well, it's just really cost now. So this is just, so there's no other design pictures. So is this a design question or a cost question?
Well, so one question is there a budget? I'm assuming there's a budget to relocate central office, and I'm assuming that's carried separately by the school committee or somebody?
Not by the project right now.
Not by the project.
And currently,
Okay.
there is no budget to relocate central office.
Okay, so that potentially an issue.
In
Maybe
this-
not
in the
our,
current
maybe not
program,
our
sorry.
issue, but potentially an issue. And then the second is.
It's not in
So is there any need?
Frank, you just went on mute if you were trying to say something.
Sorry, I just wanted to say there is no line item budget for relocation in the current budget that we're in.
Okay. All right. And then the second is there any need or appetite on the town's part to do an assessment of traffic impacts on the neighborhood when we go into what's a pretty tight residential neighborhood and we relocate all of Lynch School to Parkhurst?
I'm sure there's no plan for it right now. I mean, it's gonna have an impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is a temporary impact.
And last time, Mark, for instance, we made the street a one-way. So there was, for the flow of traffic and everything. So it was looked at the
Yeah.
last time we used it for swing space.
Okay, great.
Geetha, is that price related or do you want to talk about drawings?
I guess I was asking towards the when I heard it was not included with the total project cost, and I wanted to clarify that. Maybe it's the time to ask. In a sense, it might be a good idea, but I did quickly take a look at that template that went for the as an MSBA template that in our module. When I opened up, I thought to the best I could see it, there was a line item cost for the relocate. I mean, not relocating. 12 whatever the 6
temporary
million.
work at Parkhurst.
Say it again.
The temporary work at Parkhurst. I believe it is in the project cost. It's not in the construction cost.
Yeah, so that's why I'm thinking things getting mixed up. I think I mean, not right now to question, it might be a good idea at some point between now and the next meeting or so, if the template could be brought up in front of us and sort of say the items that had gone along, and I believe right now the total project cost, this is what it ended up being. So I did see it. That's all I wanted to clarify just by raising the question here. It's included in the total project cost.
Jay, can I just jump in to address that real quick in case
Yep.
others have that question?
Yes.
So the committee, we all have access to this information now. It's on the project drive with the emails that either Andrew set up for you or with the ones you gave me for access. So the SD submission you'll find on the project drive under module 4. It actually says schematic design submission. You can find that form Geeta's talking about. You're going to need a new prescription of glasses if you try to read it. But these costs, the MSBA considers to be project costs, not construction costs, probably because they consider it differently, for reimbursement. But very soon, once we get through tonight's meeting and the select board gets through their meeting, there's a lot of information that I'm looking forward to publishing on the project website. Not quite as detailed as what Geeta's talking about, but it breaks this down so the public can understand, okay, what's the construction cost for the new lynch? What's the cost for abatement, demolition, right, of the existing? What's the budget for all this temporary work? And then really, I think based on some good questions John Miller had at the last meeting, we're clarifying we're not spending $5 million on modulars. Modulars are a chunk, but it's not 5 million. So we're going to try to simplify it on the website, but that detail Geeta's talking about is available to folks on Project Drive. Thanks, Jay.
All right, Colleen, Brian, and Mark.
Just a very quick question on the busing. Are we assuming that all of the parents are going to be doing drop-off at Parkhurst, or are we assuming?
No. There will be transportation. So we'll be working those routes and figuring that out over the coming months.
Okay.
Brian?
So 2 questions. One, what's the restoration condition we are envisioning for after we're done using it for a swing space? What are we left with at the end?
For the purpose of the estimate, the presumption was you're left with what you have now. So
the modulars are
get
gone and we're
removed.
back to
The parking lot, unfortunately, which you're spending a lot of money on, gets removed. It gets restored to a field. Probably most of the paths, it's tough because we're spending, when you see these costs, there's an awful lot of money that's going into site work here that really is not the permanent conditions, not really a permanent improvement, but there's nowhere to do pick up and drop off for all these students, and there's nowhere to park if we put these modulars where that all is happening now, unfortunately. But the theory, the estimators were under the impression that they should be removing it all at the end. So in concept, it would look about the same as it does now afterwards.
I wonder if that's a assumption that's worth revisiting, both just in terms of cost savings and also potential future use, although it's obviously a field that gets used. My other question just was regarding the preschool. It sounds like the preschool program, we're not certain about what's happening. Are there any implications for the relocation of that we need to be thinking about as well? Is that in scope for any of our discussions?
I think it's a little early. It could be. If it is, we'll bring it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Ideally, we're looking to relocate into existing schools. There are 2 sections of VO right now. So we're really keeping an eye on the enrollment. And we're just kind of rethinking some things about maybe there's some things that we could move around going into the following year that might help that situation out.
John Miller?
I was just going to say there hopefully there's an opportunity to kind of think through what that upper part of the site will look like afterwards, and maybe try to do double duty so that there's, the grading we're doing for the parking will turn into a field. And I'm sure you've already thought of this, Charlie. I'm sure people are thinking on it, but it might just be a possible uptick in that portion of the site, because drainage, clean up some drainage issues. That changing grade from the upper field down to the lower field, you're probably going to do something there for that walkway, and then maybe there's something that can be done once for both uses. I'm just thinking out of the box. It would be nice to try to do it once, and my own preference is that Parkhurst becomes available for something else and goes off the school department list after this, because the next school that's going to be built is going to be over near Mystic. But so there are other things at play, and we ought to be thinking about this long term as a park.
Right. So I mean, we also are showing, for instance, 60 spaces. If we decide that's a terrible assumption, we could have 30 spaces. I mean, we're happy to reduce scope wherever we can. We also have a fairly robust budget in right now for stormwater mitigation, and it may be that the powers that be in town are willing to look at temporary conditions in the short term, and that we don't have to do quite so much infrastructure work. So there's some conservative assumptions around this whole thing that it would be nice if we could manage to.
And I think that's
whittle
good.
away at.
It's good that they're conservative. I'm in favor of that.
What is
Mark?
the assumption, Charlie, that parking spaces are going to be paved or gravel? I didn't look at that.
Right now, they're paved.
Oh, okay.
If we can survive with gravel, that's great. I mean, the problem with gravel, of course, is hard to plow, but
Uh-huh.
I think Brian and John both raised good questions about, ultimately what's the highest and best use of that, particularly the portion of the site that's being disrupted for parking in the near term as a long-term final condition. And that's something I was going to ask you, Frank, is that something that you all would help us understand, or something that the school committee would help us understand, so that we could provide Charlie with the right direction here?
Frank, you're on mute.
I think we can, so the short answer is yes, but I think the longer term question is what is the longer term intention for the use of Parkhurst? I mean, there currently is no plan for Parkhurst beyond using it as swing space for Lynch. I do think there's some outside, I know there's some outside interest from, in particular, a special education collaborative who is dying for space. And then no one wants to talk about it, but at some point, there's got to be another conversation about where central office is going to be. I mean, it's going to be a mess for us the next 2 or 3 years. I'm candidly quite concerned about us on an operational side, but we'll figure it out. But when Lynch is done, where do we go? And if it's not here, then where would it be? So yes, I'm sorry, Mark, short answer is, to the extent that we understand what it could look like, we would want to be involved in that piece of the design.
Yep.
And also, I think I just want to add that we would not be bidding the removal anyways at the same time as the placement. We're not going to have a contract to hold it out there for 2 to 3 years. So we have time after this is in place to decide the right thing to do.
Right.
Before it's all removed and turned over.
Do we need
That's
to
true.
budget
That's
for it
true
now?
for the parking lot.
We
That's
need
true.
the budget, which is in there. Yeah.
right. So the modular cost assumes removal of modulars. That doesn't assume removal of the site. The site is part of the site budget. And that would in fact be a separate matter, because I don't think that modular people would do that.
But you have money carried in the budget to restore.
Yes.
Right. So, but we would not award that project at the beginning of the job. So we have time to work with that second budget in after Lynch is underway and see what's best for this. Meg, do you recall the matting we bought? Was that a total disaster for the temporary driveways?
Up here? Up here?
I think we did it at the high school. We bought the matting, and then did the plows end up ripping it up? We made temporary parking.
Yeah, I don't remember that, Jay.
Yeah. When we had to go over the
That's been very
Skillings,
short-lived,
we bought temporary parking matting.
I mean, if you
that was
do,
laid down.
if you do kind of crush down stone dust and you insist they raise their blade a little bit, I mean, You might be able to survive with gravel.
Yeah, we'll have to do some research. We bought a product for Skillings that went over the stone, and I think it had to be plowed a certain way, and ended up at one storm got destroyed. But it was instead of paving, it went over the stone.
Well, you have to raise your blade a little, and that means you don't get it perfectly clean,
Yeah.
which plow people don't like that, but
I'll have to
Yeah,
go-
it's, when they're plowing in storms and they've been driving for 24 hours, it's hard for them to remember. Yeah, this is the parking lot. Oh, shoot. Yeah, too late.
Hey, I just wanted to offer that when we have talked about this before, what we have represented to the community is we would be restoring the field, and some have observed the field is in such poor condition right now that just restoring it from a former parking lot would leave us with a field in better condition than the one we have now, and people would appreciate that. Also, having a field adds some value to Parkhurst, even if it's for a private concern or a public-private entity, because obviously there's a bolus of play space there. So I'd agree with what you said, Frank. It's an appropriate maybe conversation to circle back with administration and school committee, but I do want the EFPBC just to be aware that we have certainly to this point represented that the parking lot would come out, we would restore the field, and it would be better than it is today. Not because we're doing turf or anything, just because it's in lousy shape today.
Right.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Can we move on to the pricing?
Oh, sorry. So is it a buy-in, Jay, that as Chris said, the requirement would be the parking spaces had to be removed at the end of the trailer? In other words, I'm trying to pursue, okay, then can we just look into, instead of being paved, unpaved parking?
We have a lot we can do once the project moves forward. What Charlie's going to show you next is how the money there's been a lot of conversations over the last 2 weeks of the dollars that are allocated for swing space and Parkhurst. So went back and asked Charlie to break it out. So this screen here is showing you how those dollars are broken out. And that's just to be included in the budget. Now we have to work with these. There's nothing set in stone, except this is where the money is allocated to come up to that $5 million number. It's not $5 million just to rent modules. It's
Right.
broken down, as you can see, into site work and
no,
delivery,
nearly
removal.
half of it, unfortunately, is going to site.
Yeah, but nearly half of it is modulus, which just makes me just sick, but.
Yeah.
Right.
In the
And
past,
that's
we heard
12
about,
modulars for 24 months
Correct.
rental
yeah,
to bring out to that. Okay.
we heard some power line issues in the past that's being taken care of, I guess. I heard John Miller was talking at some time. Are there power line conflict or something like that? Or-
I think we show an existing pole that can remain. There are assumptions around electrical, plumbing, fire,
Okay.
this scope. So, right, so this is it. And I mean, there was an allowance for Parker School upgrades of $500,000 that was part of the spring town meeting presentation. And then the estimators developed the $4.8 million number for Parkhurst and for modulars. And obviously, as we get into it further, we can further refine this, but this is just where we are in terms of the what went into the project budget form.
Charlie, do we need any extra bathrooms or anything, or is that all covered in existing Parkhurst?
Show bathrooms.
Okay, they're in the modulars.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. I just didn't look
right
carefully
there,
enough.
right in the
Yep.
middle,
Cool, thanks.
just a pair. And we show a stick-built connector, so that we can keep the building separate from the existing building, which usually helps with fire issues, because in theory, we'd want to treat them as separate buildings. So this is a way of sort of treating them separately, which may help us convince the fire department we don't need the sprinkler. One of the issues is if they consider it one building, it's going to trigger sprinklers everywhere, which is below the line and is a pretty big cost, and we'd like to avoid that. So we've done this before as a way to keep the modulars technically by code separate, and in theory they ought to be completely separate. But I think that I think often they've accepted the idea of a connector as essentially creating two buildings.
Frank?
Just real quick, I also just want to point out that we have made security upgrades to the building because we have the 4 preschool sections downstairs. So we have put in a camera system, and we're standardizing on the district-wide system to be in line so we can get on one platform. But we feel pretty good about the security we have in place. So likely that's not going to need to be part of the investment.
Anyone else on Parkhurst for now?
Do we need a lighting for the parking, or I don't know, is it?
Well, I'm sure there will be lighting for the parking lot.
Okay,
It might just be off the utility poles. We don't know, but
okay.
We might
all-
use the porch lights from the neighbors right across the street, just have them, maybe they get 100-watt bulbs instead of 60 or something.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be pretty excited about all of it. So
Yeah, they're gonna love it.
I really think they are.
So to summarize where we're at here, we have a fully loaded budget for this and the restoration of it to the current condition. There might be opportunities to save substantial, money on the stormwater, or, if we don't fully restore, if we leave things, or it sounds like there's a number of those things. We're carrying a full budget for it.
We do, and I don't want to be a wet blanket about these things, but we also had a warning from the estimators that they think this is a reasonable modular number, except for people are having a hard time getting modulars, and they're ending up paying premiums to source them from all over the universe because they can't get them. So while I'm happy to assume that this is a loaded budget, it just is hard to predict. The estimator said, we think this should hold. However, we know of cases where there are communities and districts paying a premium for modulars over this because they can't source them. So I don't mean to put any kind of a pall over the conversation. I'm just saying, and I know it's annoying, but we're just struggling with supply chain, et cetera, right now.
Yep. Oops. Okay. Community meetings. Chris, do you want to explain that a little bit?
Sure, let me pull that up. Oop, it says I cannot scroll. Somebody needs to stop sharing, Charlie. And then I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Usually we can just step on each other. Let me try that again. Okay, so at our last meeting, we broached the subject of trying to pin down some dates when we can start our community meetings, both for the general population, but certainly for town meeting in the run up to fall town meeting. So we did reach out to Charlie and his team, and Vivian and Andy, and these were 3 dates that seemed to work pretty well for them. It's September 29th, October 6th, and then October 17th. And what we're asking the committee to do is sort of pencil those in, save them if you'd like to. What I think we would probably do is post as an EFPBC meeting. And certainly Jay will call us to order if we have a quorum, but we don't have to have a quorum. And then similar to what we did at the project kickoff back in November, we would probably look to use the town hall auditorium in the morning. So this would be after drop off for those families for whom a morning presentation is more convenient. We would do so, and then follow up in the evening with basically the same presentation. We don't have, any real specifics pinned down yet. I think it would be great if there's a way we could actually have that evening presentation at Lynch. There may already be, and I think there actually is a Lynch event that night on the 29th, so that might be just reserved for a morning presentation. But either we're using Lynch in the evening, maybe Winchester High School, and then of course on October 17th is another opportunity to engage with everybody. I think town meeting opens on October 10th, if I have that date right from Meg. So, we're just going to have to, as we go, find those dates that seem to be not to be in conflict, whether with district events, holidays and what have you, where we can just continue to sort of present what the project is about and field questions from the community. So anyway, those were the first 3 that looked like they had some traction: 29th, 6th, and 17th. So yeah, that was basically it. We just asked you to sort of put those in your calendar. And then we don't have any more details yet, but we hope to have some soon.
Yeah, Chris, as soon as you have details on times in particular, that would be very, very helpful.
Will do.
John Miller?
I don't think those conflict with town meeting, Chris. I think town meeting's after. I believe.
Yes, no, town meeting opens on November 10th.
Oh, excuse me, November 10th, of course, not October 10th. Thank
Yep.
you. I misspoke. Yeah, so John, yeah, I don't know. I had a brain disconnection there.
All
So
good, all good, all good, all good.
Well, but you're reminding me of something, John, that third date, October 17th. So as John and I think a few others know, by charter, the town manager has to hold a public hearing for the warrant for town meeting. There will be, of course, articles on the warrant for Lynch. But the Lynch project itself, almost like warrants its own meeting. So the 17th might be a public hearing, maybe more focused on town meeting members, perhaps. So we'll see how it goes. So if you don't mind, just sort of pencil those in. I see Brian and Geeta. Brian, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that I think multiple prongs to like spread the word and educate folks about the project is pretty important. I would recommend I can help work on this, put together a deck that just contains, renderings, floor plans, schedule, budget, and, questions, email address and website link. And, I find sometimes things like that have a way of spreading via email pretty rapidly. I just think the more ways we can try to disseminate the information and create those touch points, the better. And I think we have basically everything we need to create something like that at this point for the project.
That's a good point, Brian. And we have, as you know, we've continued to put information on the project website, and we have much more that'll be up there soon. And the hope was that we might leverage, whether it's Twitter, it's Facebook, Instagram, or what have you, sort of direct people back to a reliable source for information. We do have a communications group, that had volunteered to help out, to get the message out. Frank and I met with them a few days ago just to kind of bring them up to speed now that they're back and summer is over. So they're eager to jump in and help as well. But you make a good point just about a simple deck, a deck that backs up the elevator speech on the project.
And links back to the website.
Yeah, may reach out to you on that. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Ethan?
Jay, maybe this is the time, if I may ask. I saw that other topics are moving on to the other ones. I suppose when we go to the community meetings, we would bring up the total project cost, correct? It's not the total construction cost. So all I'm asking is the total project cost is about 100 million or so. It would be nice if we all just see the breakdown, how the numbers marched up to that number. And if I have some, just the questions in my mind, whether we could ask that. Some certain things I spotted up on, and I could be wrong because I quickly looked at it. The owner's contingency seemed to be, even though the other slide that we had for the last meeting, but when I looked at it today, I thought owner's contingency seemed to be around 700,000 or something. And it would be nice how the numbers marched up to from total construction cost to total project cost ended up being 100 million or something. It would be nice to know that,
So Geeta, we have a page on project cost on the website today. It's been up there for a while that kind of talks holistically, what is construction cost, what's project cost, and how are they the same, how are they different? We already have some updates virtually ready to go. We were just waiting until Vivian got everything submitted and be sure we didn't have any major issues. So I look forward to publishing that very soon, and it will do a lot of what you're describing. It will actually, first of all, clarify the construction cost for the new building. It will be clear there's an additional cost for the abatement and demolition of the old, and we've got some swing space costs. And then it will also kind of break down what adds up to the project budget. And so I'm glad you just asked the question the way you did. And I'm going to encourage all of us to be very careful about the words we use. This will not be a $100 million project cost. It won't be. We have a project budget of a little over 94 million. our project cost will be nowhere near 94 million at the end of the day, in large part because of a sizable MSBA reimbursement grant, which is, let's say $19 to $20 million. So our net project cost, which is, we know it's at the end of the day when you close out the project and you look at what you spent and what you didn't, and we're a long way from that, it's going to be in the $70 million range. So I'm going to try very hard, Geeta, on the website to draw the distinction between.
Can we bring the slide here, Chris?
I'm sorry?
Can we please bring the MSBA template here so that we can ask the question? So I thought, I did not see, I saw the design and escalation contingency. Then I didn't see construction contingency up there. So I was a bit confused.
Actually, there is a construction contingency we're holding currently in that total project budget, and it is the budget. Also, be mindful that it includes the feasibility and schematic phase of the
that's
project
fine.
that was already previously funded.
Yeah.
You just, per MSBA requirements, you have to carry that as a total project budget. But in that same budget, we're holding a 10% construction contingency. That's in
line is
that's in addition to what the cost estimators are already holding as kind of escalation and contingencies as well. For the owner's soft cost contingency, at the moment, we're only anticipating and holding a 1%, because we don't anticipate a lot of changes coming from the owner side of making requests for changes and modifications that haven't already been absorbed into the design and into the project cost. If anything, there will be changes related to construction or unforeseen conditions that arise that would be taken out of the 10% construction contingency, which is a very healthy. We typically don't hold a 10%. We normally hold between like maximum 8. So, but given the circumstance of supply chain issues, we wanted to be more on the conservative side.
Right, we should just table this, Geeta, we'll put it on the agenda to bring it up, and we all go over it line item for line item. That's what we've done in the past. We all sought to make sure everyone understands all the lines. Right now, we're just going off of what was sent out. It's in MSBA's hands right now.
Right,
The number is public. Now we can start
I
talking
have a
about
very
it.
high reservation. Why did we pinched on owner's contingency being 1%? There's a lot of issues. Yes, I can see that we bumped up on the design and construction contingency, but owner's contingency, I think we have a history of quite a comfortable amount there. For example, we have not sure all the storm drainage issues are sort of tucked in here. We can talk about it in the 15 meeting, but I thought being 1% is very, very lean in my opinion. But we can talk about it when you bring it up, the slide.
Yeah, I would recommend after we have our meeting with the MSBA, our initial meeting, mid-September timeframe, end of September timeframe. Once we have our meeting with the MSBA, and then we could come back and present. I just don't feel comfortable at the moment sharing the line items until MSBA has had an opportunity to review, comment, provide their guidance before we kind of make it a public information at this meeting.
And I would just also add, and forgive me, John and Mark, your hands are up, that I think we did discuss this concept of a 1% contingency, when we were giving direction to the OPM in terms of what we were going to submit, as well as others. Remember, I was suggesting, do we want to pull back on the construction contingency? That's at 10%. And I had thrown out the idea of going to 8 or 9. Mark Scott pointed out, I will never have E&O that high, and he's right. So that was all. We have escalation, we have design contingency, owner's contingency, construction contingency, all mixed together in a bowl. The committee felt it was comfortable with a 1%, but
it is treated separately. I think owner's contingency is in our hand that we can, do with the money what we need. We cannot touch on the designers, as an owner. So
well,
I mean, it's just, Mhm.
The reality is that the owner's contingency and the construction contingency are, you can move that money around.
Yeah.
And so to some degree, these are artificial categories. Where they go, and typically owners' contingencies are earmarked for soft cost issues. We didn't budget enough for furniture. We have to buy some more chairs. We didn't budget enough for computers. We got to buy some more computers. Oh, oops, we need more survey work than was budgeted for. Those kind of costs, while construction contingency is for hard costs and change orders. But the fact of the matter is that can be transferred as you wish as an owner. And it also can act as a hedge against overages and bids or other unforeseen. Right. So you can have a 10% construction contingency and need a little extra money just to sign the contractor up, and you can take it out of construction contingency. So these things are somewhat fungible. And I think nobody should get too hung up on exactly which category they fall into. They are contingencies.
Right, we just wanted to make sure that we're holding a sufficient amount, and at the moment, and close to 11% contingency is conservative.
We had this conversation, Mark brought it up, so we discussed this. John, you had a question?
I was just, next topic, so I can wait if once.
Okay. So the next topic is the town meeting authorization. Are we ready to move on? So Meg, that is what you sent out earlier?
Yeah, so the language for the article, motion, and ballot question have not changed since we last met. The only thing that I did is I added in the percent that we know right now, which is 35.92. That could change, and we'll change the language accordingly. And then the full, right now, dollar amount for the project that we know to be $94,356,183. So this is in here now until we know differently. If it has to go to the printer prior to making those changes, then we'll just put out a change, at town meeting to let everybody know the revised percentages. But like Vivian said, we might have a better understanding, by the end of September, which because town meeting is so late this year, it works to our advantage so that we'll have time to adjust this necessary. So no other, nothing has been changed. Those items were blank last time you saw, and now they have the percentage in and the dollar amount.
John, is that what your question's pertaining to?
No.
Okay. Any questions on this? All right. Debt exclusion override. Is that you, Meg?
This is the debt exclusion override language right here that you were looking at a second ago.
So that's the both together.
Meeting tonight.
I'll bring it back. Just give me a second. I'll bring it back up, Meg. Sorry, keep going.
Okay. There's a meeting with the select board tonight to decide on what day the debt exclusion override vote will take place. We had thought it was set for November 8th. I can't see my calendar. And that is come into question. So I believe that the select board is going to discuss the possibility of moving it back to the January 7th date, which would be the first Saturday in January of 23, which is the date that was originally discussed by this group. So I honestly don't know the history of why it's been going back and forth, but the select board is meeting on it in probably about an hour and a half. And I think they'll vote a date, and then we'll come back to you again to just get a confirming, the select board is the body that determines the date, but we'll just come back and get the EFPBC to vote it just to show, that you guys are aware of it and support it. Yeah. So John, sorry to be so long-winded. Was that your question?
Nope,
Nope.
but I hope they don't change the date.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know what's gonna happen tonight. I was, yeah. So we'll see. They'll have a discussion and they'll decide.
Meg, when does that meeting starts at 8?
I don't know when it starts.
It's going on
the
already.
agenda.
We hope
It's
to be
just-
on at 8:30.
Yeah,
Okay,
it wouldn't be
8:30.
on the agenda until after 8 o'clock.
I might take advantage of WinCam to
Please
listen
do.
in.
I told Rich Mucci we were going to try to wrap up tonight so members could watch if they wanted to.
No, it won't be
Although,
before
I
8.
I should just clarify, they're meeting in person. So if you want to watch, you either have to go down there or you watch it on WinCam. I'm in New York City, so it's WinCam for me tonight.
Yeah.
I'm not going over there.
No. I have an item on the agenda before this, so it won't be before probably 8. Definitely won't be before 8.
Okay.
They're not waiting for the article from you, right, Meg?
No,
Yeah.
they have this language.
Yeah,
I'm not sure they're gonna vote the article language until their next meeting.
okay.
Feasibility study reappropriation.
So I do not have any language to look at tonight. I'm working with bond counsel. They were away on vacation last week, but to keep this moving, I would look for you guys to maybe vote to give me permission to work with bond counsel and the town manager's office to revise the current language. This was the language that was voted at the spring of 20 town meeting for the 1.5 million for the feasibility study. So what this vote at town meeting would do would be to expand the scope of work in that study, just allowing us to use the remaining funds there for the continuation of the project. So it's just legalese that needs to be done. That gives us, because otherwise, like right now, because the the submission was made and we're no longer working on the schematic design phase technically, I can't authorize any additional spending for design development or anything else.
Can I make that motion, Jay, to move this along? Can I make the
Yes,
mo-
please.
Can I make the motion that we,
Mark has his hand up though.
John, why don't you go ahead with the motion and then I'll ask about the two other.
I just would move that Meg be given authority by EFPBC to negotiate an appropriate language changes so that we can reappropriate feasibility study money to continue the project.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. All right, we'll get a roll call.
Mark, did you want to ask your question before we vote?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Frank,
Aye.
Lisa,
Yes.
Brian, we have Todd,
Aye.
Geetha,
I,
John Siciliano.
Yes.
Okay, Colleen,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Don. Don, you're on mute.
Okay, aye, sorry.
Thank you. And myself, so that passed. Thank you, John, for the motion.
Okay.
All right, Mark, you want to ask your question now?
Yeah, just on the debt exclusion override and the warrant language, Meg, are you looking for a vote from the EFPBC on either of those, and when are you looking for that?
Well, I would, if you hadn't already voted it, I would appreciate a vote. So, and similar that if it needed to be tweaked or anything, but the language is here. It's pretty solid. It's not going to change. So the only thing that might change is the percentage amount and maybe the dollar amount, but I don't think so. I thought you voted it last
We
time.
did.
Matt.
we
Oh, I
did.
just didn't
We
have it
already did.
in my notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
My
we're all
apologies.
set. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
What
feasibility
I
study.
would ask though is if Meg, when you work with Mark Toogood and you just look at the deadlines, for town meeting, if you feel like you need us to come back, and even if it's a special quick town meeting if it's a quick EFPBC meeting to vote, actual motion language and, background language or what have you, we could certainly put out the call and see if we can get a quorum together to do that. That's all.
Okay.
Are
So
you saying, I'm sorry. after meetings, select my meeting today, we will know for sure what they have decided, correct? Whether it's going to go for November 8th or not.
We hope
After
so.
two-
Right.
Okay.
Guarantee. John?
Okay.
You have a
I would-
question?
I was just gonna make a suggestion that, Meg, when you get to the final number, the easiest thing for FinCom to understand and for the town meeting members to understand is this was on a single sheet with sources of where the money's coming from. We have $1.7 million we've already appropriated. This X $1 million is coming from the state. Y $1 million is gonna come from a debt exclusion override. You know, and then on the right-hand side, uses. And at the bottom, they add it to the same number, and that's the budget. I think I would suggest that that's the kind of one sheeter that would make life simpler.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but
I'm happy to help you if you wanted any help.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm not sure, we would be the ones doing that. I mean, that, we would look to the EFPBC and Hill to help with that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done yet on that type of information and the background. I mean, the background on these important votes is, you know, hugely helpful to getting people up to speed in a very short period of time. So that's something that you guys will collectively and, you know, singularly want to work on. So.
Okay. Can we move on to Chris Conway?
I think we can move Chris Conway to the beginning of every meeting. So
We should. It's not fair to keep him waiting.
I know. Unless you like to sit here, Chris.
I would not be upset. All right, so an update, good update, I think, positive anyway. September 2nd, we had a large contingent of folks come visit the high school. We had about 12 people representing Amati, the mechanical contractor, DAC Sales, the equipment provider, and House, the control vendor. They worked on the roof the entire day. The 4 more significantly compromised units were resolved. The 3 remaining that are minor still have yet to be scheduled. It's a sort of a limited opportunity, limited window type of thing where it's Friday, most likely because of sealants and things like that. But they made good progress. They get rid of the 4 that I was the most concerned about. We had, like I said, about 12 people working on the roof, plus myself. And the 3 that are still remaining, one of them is one that I've already worked on, so less of a concern there. And the other 2 showing minor defects and, you know, sort of the potential for a problem down the road. So not an immediate concern, but on everybody's radar. Expecting a status update and plan for future from Consigli before the end of the week or by the end of the week. I think that's it. The controls issues were identified and addressed. A couple more were identified, but they should be coming in Consigli's plan also at the end of the week.
Okay. Any questions for Chris?
What are you saying,
I have
Chris?
one, but on our other
sorry.
project, so I'll wait if people have questions about this stuff.
What was that, Keita?
Well, are you saying, Chris, you're happy with the Consigli solution? Is that what?
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy in that I believe what we have will sustain. What we will, I don't think we'll ever have, we're never gonna have new good units again. You know, these units have had several
Yeah.
Band-Aids put on them, several repairs over several years. But you know, the work that was done, I think, is equal to the durability of what they would have been originally or better. I think the vendors came ready to work this time. I think they had actually hoped to do everything, and I'm glad they didn't, because they took their time in working on the most serious units first, and I think put the most effort into those to make sure we would be in a much better position moving forward.
Okay,
So Chris, on our bathroom project, I know you shared with us last time, the surface mounted units got installed and the recessed ones did not because they had not yet coordinated wall openings and so forth. Do we know where we stand with that, either to
No,
you or
that's
Meg?
really not, it really out of my hands. As far as that aspect of it, the 5 that are installed are in use now. But the buyout of the demo and framing is really not in my
I mean,
wheelhouse.
I know I know it's not your job. I just figured if they were there and had done the work, you would have known about it. So Meg.
No,
where
no,
do we-
it's not done.
No, there's been no progress, Chris. Peter and I just have to find somebody who can do it, and we just haven't had any time to do it, so.
I think, so do you need anything from us? Is there anything we can do to help expedite it?
Time, money, personnel.
So do you
All the
need
above.
money or are we okay with the budget?
No, we'll be fine. We're gonna probably need some additional money for sure. But I don't know yet. I just had, like I said, Peter and I haven't been able to get together on it.
Chris, do we have, is there a bathroom on every level that has access?
I'll be honest.
Yes, I think that is accurate. I think there's 2 in the gym building, 3 bathrooms in the sort of core. First and second floor in the gym building, first and third floor, I believe, in the core, and then one of the specialty, more limited use bathrooms.
Okay.
And Dennis and Paula have some temporary measures in place as well, but no good deed goes unpunished. So since some of these have shown up and they've been installed, it's driving other questions, which is, well, what about the rest of them? So.
Just tell them it's coming. It's slow, like.
Yep.
you know,
Okay. Right.
On
Thank
the
you.
list.
Yeah. Anything else for Chris?
No, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. All right. So we had payments and authorizations I sent out right before the meeting from Meg.
Yes.
Do you have that, Chris? Or?
So.
I'll get a motion on the table just that we approve them for payment.
There we go. I just had to grab it. Sorry.
Okay. So Hill, Tape, and Welch is just updated. Is that for the roof, Meg?
Yes.
High school project? Okay. So John, you made a motion to approve?
Yep.
Second.
And who second?
I'll second, Don.
Done? Okay. We'll get a roll call. Frank?
Aye.
Lisa?
yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Todd?
Aye.
Geetha?
Aye.
John Siciliano?
Yes.
Colleen?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And John and Miller and myself. So that passed. We're all set. Meg, I'll get that over to you tonight. And next meeting date is the 29th.
That would be, we're thinking one of our communications meetings. And then if Meg needs anything from us in terms of a special meeting to approve anything for town meeting, she just needs to let you know, Jay.
Okay. Anyone have anything? Oh, we have John, question?
I had my same question from before.
Okay.
Could Frank or Charlie send me the last program document for what the central office needs are? So there's got to be a program document that we need X space, we need this many offices, we need this, we need so much room for that and this other. Could someone send me that or send it to the whole committee so that we have what that program looks like? Because Frank, I'm going to make sure that we help you on central administration. So that's one of my missions this year.
Who has it? I don't know. I could probably dig it up, but.
Yeah, you can use the one from
Carriage House.
Carriage
Yeah.
House. That was pretty well detailed.
Space, yeah.
There's got to be a program piece of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there is.
but John, that program was developed
I
for central
understand.
office, not specifically for the Carriage House.
Yeah, I don't mean the drawings. I mean the program.
No, the
Right.
program,
Right, yeah.
we
Yep.
sent that to you and FinCom We can go back and find it again. Hasn't changed.
Pauline?
Just a really quick question for Charlie on the energy model. I don't know if I missed it, if you sent that through. I know that was something we were going to discuss at the end of August, but then it got rolled into the submission. So maybe
Well,
it's
there's no formal, there's typically no formal energy model until we get further along.
No,
So I
Magda
don't,
said
there's a statement. Yeah, there's no energy model in the SD submittal.
okay, so when we had the meeting in July, we were supposed to have an energy model, and then Magda said, I don't have all the inputs, so we're going to have the energy model at the end of August. And
I'll check with her, but I mean, if there was anything, there'd be like a black box assumption only.
we've seen that one, yeah. Okay.
Colleen, I had a completely different read from Magda. I thought at our last sustainability subcommittee, she brought that grid of, peer projects, some elementary, some middle school, and basically said, because the Lynch project is so early in terms of design, we're not prepared to do an energy model. However, based on these peer projects, which is, either square footage or working with Charlie or projects she's familiar with, she sort of walked us through where she feels very safe about hitting that EUI target, if not exceeding it.
Yes, so that was a placeholder in advance of the energy model, which I didn't hear anything from her saying that the energy model is now not going to happen because of that meeting.
I thought I heard her say it is too early to produce an energy model, but because the subcommittee is very interested in this, this is what I can share with you.
Yeah, well, I didn't leave with the same feeling, but it's also not too early to have an energy model, period, end of story. So
Charlie, do you want to clarify with
people
Magda?
I think there are people that really disagree with that. So we should figure this out very quickly before.
yeah, we have energy models in middle of schematic design. So, I mean, they may be shoebox, there might be assumptions built in, but it's definitely not too early.
Charlie, you're gonna have to go back and, if you can, and confirm what she said and what can be done. Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, so for the next meeting on 10/29, Chris, you are going to send, as soon as you have actual times and locations, you're going to send that out to the entire committee so that we can plan for that?
Yes, it's not 10/29, 9/29, September 29th.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It would be like an informational meeting. We would try to do, because for some families, something in the morning is more convenient. So we obviously can't do it at school. So we're thinking town hall auditorium, and then following up with something in the evening. I believe that the Lynch community has an event already scheduled on the 29th in the evening. So that might be a morning only kind of kickoff. So this is some of the stuff we're still trying to, coordinate. But yeah, I'll let everybody know as soon as those dates start to become clear.
Okay, and then Colleen, the sustainability subcommittee meeting is on 9/15 at 9 a.m., not at noon, right?
So there is another meeting.
Are there two?
No, it's noon. And then it's an additional meeting with the select board on sustainability at 9 a.m. on Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, great.
Now I want to clarify, the select board is having a meeting in the morning on the 15th?
Yes. You got an invite to that, Chris?
Well, if that's a select board meeting, then anybody can watch and come to the meeting if it's posted as a public body. I did not understand that was actually a select board meeting.
It's not a posted meeting. It's with fewer than a quorum, so it's not a posted meeting, Chris.
Okay. But that's what I wanted to clarify.
So do we have time? I mean, we don't meet with MSBA doesn't vote until or approve until the 20th. So we really can't meet next Monday to go over the budget. And then after that, the 26th is a holiday. So are we okay going to the 29th without reviewing this budget in full? line item for line item.
I have a reservation, Jay. In the past, we have seen the template up front because then, we have
But we
seen
were all
line
part of
by
it. I mean, we would be in the room where we were going over it on the projector and going line item for line item in the past. I don't know if it was
I mean, I'm
necessarily
talking our
or
EFPBC meeting.
MSBA or not. I don't know the timing, if it was actually before the submission or not. We're just trying to do everything following their guideline.
This is our EFPBC meeting, just the template was transparent from top to bottom, and
No, we do need a meeting just to go through that and make sure everyone understands.
yeah, I would definitely, it's not, with due respect, it's not questioning anything, but just to,
Understand it.
yeah, it just, it was,
Jay, it might be if maybe we wait till Meg can get back to us, but it seems to me fairly soon there should be an opportunity to review some updated language for town meeting, and that might be a double header meeting to do that, which would be pretty quick. And then maybe, Vivian and Andy and Charlie can walk us through the 3311 form that Geeta's talking about.
yeah, I've been in 2 schools, went to MSB. I've seen it up front from top to bottom. You name it, so many revisions. And here, I mean, I'm just for the sake of the town, it's nice to see it. So,
And again, everybody has access to it now, but it would be
yeah,
good
but I
to,
think the
just
OPM
work
has
through
to
it.
walk through us, Chris. It's different. It's
Yeah.
not like,
Yeah.
I'm going and reading it. Sure, I can do that reading assignment.
Maybe we
Oh, we
should,
had to find some time. Maybe that's a good idea, Chris. Once we know what else Meg needs from us, we could schedule a meeting just for those 2 items and not do anything else.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we can spend some time on the budget, make sure everyone's comfortable with it. Todd, did you have a question?
Yeah, not a question, but more of a support for Colleen. I do think that it's not too early to have some sort of basic model. And there's not going to be a lot of detail yet, I know, but it's not too early to start it. I've done these for other projects myself.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mark, your hand
And
is
Mark.
still up.
Yeah, for that budget discussion, if you can just make sure that it's clear what's a contingency and what's not. So what's like a percentage over a hard budget, then I think, Geeta, to your point, it will be easier for us to discuss each of those, what they total and what they are for, at least conceptually, understanding Charlie's very good point before, that ultimately in the end, they're all just money. But it's good for us to plan that way and think about them that way.
I mean, in my pocket, it's a good feeling as opposed to, it can be shifted around.
Yep, totally agree.
On that note, Jay, we're only within 5 minutes of schedule. If there's no other comments, I'm happy to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Frank?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Todd?
Aye.
Geeta?
Aye.
So, John Siciliano?
Yes.
Siciliano, sorry. Colleen? And Chris, Mark, John Miller?
Yes.
And Don.
Yes.
All right, so we're adjourned, and if anyone wants to catch us at 8:30, we'll be at the select board.
Good
Can't
luck.
wait.
Good
I know,
luck.
we're gonna need
Okay,
it.
luck.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Dave,
Bye-bye.
thank
Good night.
you.